Good evening. Welcome to TVB News. The hearing of former ICAC Chief Timothy Tong's overspending allegations continued at the Public Accounts Committee today. The current Commissioner and Community Relations Director were called upon again to clarify all the ambiguous responses the former ICAC chief gave in yesterday's hearing. A key area of today's grilling surrounded the ICAC's standing order, which was described by the incumbent Commissioner Simon Pei as the anti-graft body's Bible. Among the standing order stipulations are how expenses such as food and beverages should be filed through a Form 569, which the Community Relations Department stopped using in 2009. Department Director Julie Mu, who's under fire for having alcoholic drinks filed separately under her watch in events involving Timothy Tong, said that using both the required form and file minutes had caused confusion.
The colleagues said that file minutes were better because the information would be in greater detail than the form. So there were questions asked whether the form was a must. As far as we knew, it was not a must, and since it's created a lot of problems, so I decided to stop using the form.
But lawmakers rejected her explanation, saying she should not use file minutes as a way to circumvent the spirit of the form required of all ICAC staff.
Which is to include beverages in the entertainment expenditure to see if there is any overspending. For dinners, $400, lunch, $300. Ms. Mu, you can't tell me that you don't know about the spirit of the form.
Mu insisted that Tong had given the approval for all the purchases in question and pointed out that it was her ex-boss who gave the orders to buy the bottles of the Chinese liquor Maotai. Mu also admitted that a detour to Lijiang on a business trip to Yunnan was mostly for pleasure. After sitting through nearly 5 hours of having the ICAC's integrity seriously questioned, the current Commissioner, Simon Pei, announced a thorough review of the standing order.
And this will be a very radical review, and we will review the whole standing order. The purpose is to remove any ambiguities or any update we would put in the standing order. The second measure is a briefing for all the staff in different departments who are responsible for administrative matters. This is to remove any possible misunderstanding.
The hearing, which is to follow up on inconsistencies between Tong's testimony in an earlier hearing and the findings of a separate ICAC review, will continue at a later date.
The Commission on Poverty will meet on Saturday and announce the territory's first poverty line. Sources say it will be defined as half of the median household income. Secretary for Labour and Welfare Matthew Cheung says Hong Kong will not adopt policies commonly found in welfare states, but the government will come up with measures to cater to the needs of low-income families. Jenny Lam reports.
Mrs. Lai recalls the long hours at a hospital emergency room when her child had a high fever. They could not afford to see a private doctor, even though her husband was making about $16,000 a month to support their family of 6. The definition of the poverty line to be announced on Saturday will be based on last year's income data. Those making half of the median household income will be considered to be living below the poverty line. So for a family of 6, like Mrs. Lai's, making less than $18,000 a month will be below the poverty line. Using this definition, it's estimated that there are 1.3 million people living in poverty in Hong Kong. An alternative definition of the poverty line is to have welfare payments such as the old age allowance and students' textbook allowance counted as the household income. 3 of Mrs. Lai's children receive textbook allowance. So if this second method of calculation is used, the Lais and another 300,000 people will be living above the poverty line. And if the government's rental subsidy for their public housing flat is also counted, then another 300,000 people will also be above the poverty line. In defining what is poor, the government also cannot identify those who have no income but may have a lot of personal assets. So based on the median household income for the second quarter of this year, the poverty line for a single person and a family of 4 will be set at a monthly income of $3,600 and $15,000 respectively. But for an elderly couple living on their $2,000 or so a month in old age allowance, even if they have properties and savings, they will still be counted as poor.
The poverty line is really just a concept that adopted internationally as a political and a policy measures. But then once we have a poverty line, it would be important for us to have a better understanding of the effectiveness and the way that we should be alleviating poverty.
The Commission on Poverty will also analyse poverty within different groups in the population, for example, elderly people, new migrants and ethnic minorities. Secretary for Labour and Welfare, Matthew Cheung, denied that coming up with the poverty line is the first steps down the slippery slope of a welfare-based society. The target, he says, is to help hard-working families whose income cannot meet their basic needs. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Shanghai will unveil its free trade zone this weekend. 55 pilot policies will be rolled out from Sunday and the rest will be added by the end of the year. Some of the policies include equal privileges for domestic and foreign banks and allowing foreign banks to set up branch offices in the Chinese market. So will Hong Kong be able to keep up with the competition? Well, one analyst we talked to said as long as there's no free flow of capital in and out of the zone to the rest of the country, it will pose limited competition to Hong Kong. Here's Jenny Lam again.
The signs are up and Shanghai is all set to step into the brave new world of free trade within the confines of a socialist economy. The free trade zone covers nearly 29 square kilometres and straddles 4 key logistics development districts in Pudong. Companies will be able to transfer capital from outside China into their offshore accounts held in Shanghai, convert the money into renminbi and use it to invest within the zone. Compared with the offshore renminbi business in Hong Kong, there will be relatively few investment channels in the new zone. But Beijing's plan is to gradually ease capital flow between the zone and the rest of the country. And that will open up lots of investment opportunities, for example, in properties and stocks. Chen Bo at the Shanghai University of Finance and Economics believes investors may be reluctant to put their money in Shanghai initially because of the risk of not being able to take it out again. And as long as that is the case, he thinks Shanghai will pose little competition to Hong Kong. The make or break of the free trade zone, he says, will depend on whether there will be new financial instruments to build investors' confidence. And as long as China's financial markets remain essentially a closed shop, he says, that will continue to raise questions on Beijing's determination to further reform and open up the country to the rest of the world. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Kenyan investigators have been joined by overseas experts in their forensic probe into the recent terror attack on a Nairobi shopping mall. Authorities say the investigation should take a week. At least 72 people were killed in the 4-day siege, and more funerals and memorial services have been held for the victims. As the dust settles from one of the most brazen terror attacks in recent years, attention is now on the forensic investigation at the Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi. Experts from around the world have joined their Kenyan counterparts at the crime scene, carrying out fingerprint, DNA and ballistic analyses. Kenyan police provided no details on the investigation, only saying that forensic work was expected to take a week. The United States and other Western countries are providing technical support and equipment to Kenyan authorities. The US ambassador to Kenya said America would also help Nairobi bring the attack's organizers and perpetrators to justice. Scores of people, including 18 foreigners, were killed when militants from the Al-Shabaab group stormed the mall on Saturday. In an email exchange with the Associated Press, the Somali militant group said its fighters tried to let all Muslims go and focused their attack on those who didn't practice Islam. One survivor recalled how she tried to teach others hiding with her a Muslim prayer so that they would be spared if the militants found them.
When we were up there, we thought, okay, if they get us here, we're going to tell them, yes, we know the Shahada. And, well, I'm a Muslim. I know it. And we were trying to teach the other 9 people who were with us. They were not Muslims. and we were trying to teach them the Shahada.
Fortunately for her and the others with her, they were later found by police who led them out. Around 175 people were wounded, including more than 60 who remain in hospital. Morgue officials in Nairobi have been preparing for a large influx of bodies still in the mall. Meanwhile, more funerals and memorial services were held as the survivors, friends and relatives of the victims try to come to terms with this senseless tragedy.
The situation is desperate in southwestern Pakistan after a powerful earthquake left at least 348 people dead and many more injured. Survivors built makeshift shelters with sticks and bed sheets after their mud houses were flattened in the tremor. The remoteness of the area, the lack of infrastructure and proper roads has made relief efforts very difficult. Pakistani authorities are doing the best they can, with the military rushing almost 1,000 troops to the area overnight, and with more soldiers and supplies on the way. Well, one result of Tuesday's earthquake in southwestern Pakistan was the formation of a new island off the coast. The force of the quake was enough to raise a small part of the seabed to a point where it became a new piece of land. It attracted many locals who have been curious to visit the site, despite warnings from officials to stay away because of potentially dangerous gases. Scientists say these types of islands can remain for a long time or eventually subside back into the sea.
Welcome back. More than 200 people were evacuated from their homes when a fire broke out in Wong Tai Sin this morning. The blaze started in a 14th floor unit at Wang Tau Hom Estate at around 8 a.m. Eyewitnesses said they heard several loud bangs, but they weren't sure if those were explosions. 2 people were sent to Queen Elizabeth Hospital for smoke inhalation. An air conditioner suspected to be from the fire-gutted flat fell off the building. Firefighters also found the flat to be packed with different kinds of objects. They're investigating whether an electrical fault could have sparked the flames.
A teenager who trapped a 6-year-old boy in a drainage ditch without food or water for days has been sent to a correctional facility for young offenders. He could be there for up to 6 months, depending on his conduct while in custody. Jada Silva has the story.
It was a case which shocked many in Hong Kong. Today, Magistrate Ronald Cheung decided the 14-year-old teenager who was found guilty of trapping a 6-year-old boy in a drainage ditch for 2 days should be sent to a youth detention centre for up to 6 months. That's despite pleas by the defence lawyer who wanted the defendant to attend a reformatory school instead. The defence argued that a training centre report indicated the teenage defendant had expressed remorse, had apologised to the family of the victim, had promised to heed his mother's advice and had vowed to regularly attend and be more punctual at school. He also noted the teenager had pleaded guilty to both charges, one of false imprisonment and another of attempting to cause grievous bodily harm, and had fully cooperated with police, leading to his victim's rescue. The case dates back to June 29th when a quarrel at a playground in Saigon Street turned violent. The teenager intervened in a dispute between the 6-year-old boy and 2 8-year-olds. He sided with the older pair, and after beating the younger boy, he trapped him in the ditch. The little one stayed there for 2 days without food or water until the police forced the teenager to show where the child was. The boy was found severely dehydrated and with several abrasions. The 14-year-old offender, who earlier admitted to having been aware that his victim could have died as a result of his actions, is now confined to a detention centre until a board of review deems him fit to return to society. Upon his eventual release, the teenager will be supervised and will have to abide by a curfew. Jada Silva, TVB News.
Legislative Council President Chang Yuk-sing has warned that it will be tough to get LegCo to approve an electoral arrangement for the next chief executive election if there's the impression Beijing is excluding certain individuals from the race. Stephanie Choi reports.
Hong Kong has yet to reach a consensus on how to select candidates for the 2017 chief executive election. LegCo President Chang Yuk-sing said today that universal suffrage means giving the people the power to choose. If the electoral arrangement is such that voters cannot choose certain people, it will be tough to get it past LegCo. So will the Pan Democrats' idea of a public nomination so that no one is excluded be acceptable? Deng believes it is not the arrangement that matters right now, but how to take out what he describes as Beijing's pet hate factor. And what might that be?
What considerations are going on in the minds of the leaders in Beijing are totally above my level.
The challenge, he points out, is for Beijing to consider the fact that an arrangement acceptable to the Democrats means the possibility of electing someone that they don't trust or like.
I can't see at this moment, I can't see anyone who, as you say, is not liked by the central government, being supported by many Hong Kong people.
Deng expressed confidence that Hong Kong can elect someone who can gain Beijing's trust. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
And that's the news for tonight.
Thanks for watching. Good night.